I am delighted to present the Canadian HillmanPrize for local or small market journalism to the podcast Arachnid, Hunting the Web's Darkest Secrets. It's produced by the Investigative Journalism Bureau, TVO Today, and hosted by Robert Cribb. This 6-part podcast is an ambitious, eye-opening, and ultimately outrage-inducing investigation into the online proliferation of child sexual abuse material. We don't really like to talk about this subject much. It's what's described as aversive. Most of us would rather look away. But the sexual abuse of children and the online transmission of images of that abuse is a global epidemic. It is fueled by the internet and escalating rapidly. And as we have recently come to learn, these crimes are perpetrated in all corners of society. For his investigation, Robert Cribb spoke to leading experts and advocates from Silicon Valley to Sydney, Australia, and most crucially, to the Canadian Centre for Child Protection in Winnipeg. Its longtime executive director, Leanna MacDonald, leads one of the world's most advanced efforts to combat child sexual abuse material, or CSAM, as it's called. And make no mistake, this is not a problem that cannot be solved. It is clearly illegal to possess or access this material. It has been in Canada since 2001 and in the United States since the 1980s. Through the use of photo DNA and a simple algorithm, known images can be correctly and instantly identified online. 3 Microsoft engineers figured this out over 15 years ago, right after social media took off. And now there is Arachnid. Leanna MacDonald and her team at the Child Protection Center created a web crawler, one designed specifically to find and facilitate the automatic removal of CSAM from the web. The center has made this tool available worldwide to any platform, electronic service provider, any online company that wants it for free. So we have a solution. What is the problem? The problem, we learn, is that the biggest tech and social media companies refuse to use it. Now, as all good journalists do, Cribb asks why, over and over, and he always gets the same official response. We don't engage in censorship. We have to respect our users' privacy. We are not responsible for what happens on our platforms. But this is untrue. These same companies do find, remove, and block the unauthorized use of music and movie clips online. They will do that for a copyright violation. Yet when it comes to child sexual abuse, they say their hands are tied. The survivors who bravely speak about their own experience in this podcast tell us that removing their images from the web is the most important act society could take on their behalf. That their trauma can never heal when they know those images are still out there to be viewed and even to be used to groom other potential victims. Beyond the horror of that fact alone, the identity of some of these victims is known, and those individuals are stalked online, sometimes even in person, by sick fans who watch their childhood abuse. Researchers now say that more than 2/3 of people convicted of CSAM offenses have or have tried to sexually abuse a child. That means we know that finding and prosecuting the people with the pictures will prevent more children from being abused. Despite this, the tech companies will not act. Our governments repeatedly draft, then fail to enact laws that would force them to. Here in Canada, the Online Harms Bill has been languishing in Parliament for 5 years. The people who've been fighting this scourge don't buy the constitutional arguments. They say it's greed, fear of liability, or just plain apathy on the part of the tech companies, who also have powerful lobby groups that obstruct legislation. But that was before the world knew so very much about Jeffrey Epstein, the convicted pedophile who cavorted with princes and presidents, as well as the men behind Meta, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and X. Epstein created thousands of photos and videos of sexual abuse of underage girls, and we still don't know the names of all the rich and powerful perpetrators, despite legislation requiring that disclosure. It may not be apathy at all. The people at the highest levels of society may care far more than we ever imagined about who might be ensnared by a web crawler like Arachnid. As Leanna MacDonald says, there really are monsters among us, but there are angels out there too, who do this extremely difficult and damaging work day after day. And there are compassionate, committed, and talented journalists like Robert Cribb and his team who make sure the rest of us don't forget about it. We owe it to them and to the innumerable victims not to avert our eyes from this terrible crisis. So in that spirit, I am honored to present the Canadian HillmanPrize for local or small market journalism to Arachnid, Hunting the Web's Darkest Secrets. It is produced by the Investigative Journalism Bureau, TVO Today, Piz Gloria Productions, and the Toronto Star. Robert Cribb and Laurie Few will accept the prize tonight, and sharing in their success, I am especially thrilled to say that Leanna MacDonald from the Canadian Centre for Child Protection is joining us tonight as well. Please welcome them to the stage.
Investigative journalism in Canada doesn't see many awards as prestigious and significant as the Hillmans, and I'm delighted to be up here to accept it on behalf of the wonderful team that we had doing this incredible podcast. I want to start by thanking a couple newsrooms for making this possible. The Toronto Star, I think we have some representatives. And TVO, where I work, collaborated on this project. I'll repeat that because it is such a cool thing, and I don't think we see enough of collaboration in the media, and I'm so grateful I work at a place and with other organizations that are willing to collaborate so we get the very best of journalism, because when we do that, it expands capacity and it expands quality, and that's how we get Arachnid. I also want to tip my hat to both those newsrooms, TVO and the Star, because they fearlessly took on a sensitive, very fraught, and honestly gut-wrenching, you only heard the tiniest bit of it, subject, and they didn't stop for a minute to worry about any resistance that we might have on this topic. But most importantly, I want to say that the opportunity as a journalist still today to work on journalism that is in the public interest and the public service is a great honor. And I'm so thankful, and I'm so thankful it's being recognized tonight. So with that, I'm going to pass the baton. I don't know, I'm not a runner. I'm going to pass something over to my dear friend, colleague, fantastic investigative journalist, and I sort of think, most importantly, the founder of the Investigative Journalism Bureau, to tell us a little bit more. Rob Cribb.
Thank you so much to the Hillmans. It's an extraordinary and unusual choice, a story like this, for an award like this, because it's just so dark and difficult, and nobody really wants to talk about it. And it's not the type of story that wins awards. So thank you to the judges for making a courageous choice. I just want to say a couple things very quickly. Many of you in this room do investigations. You know they take a long time. This one took 15 years. It was 15 years ago, more than that, I was a father of a young daughter. I was becoming increasingly seized with this issue of child abuse, child exploitation. It terrified me, so I started doing journalism, tried to do journalism about it, and I just couldn't. It was an impenetrable subject. The voices are impossible to find, and even if you do, the sensitivities and the vulnerabilities of those voices are such that those stories are very difficult to tell, beyond the superficial and the anecdotal. And everyone I talked to, I was trying to figure out, where's the data? It's not StatsCan doesn't have this data. Where are the people? And again, when I asked that question, the answer was, there's only one person in this country who holds the keys to get inside this world, this dark world. And her name is Leanna McDonald. And she runs this center in Winnipeg, which is leading the world in this work. So I called her and I said, can I come see you? So I flew to Winnipeg and I sat in her boardroom. She gave me an hour and I pitched. And I said, I really want to do this work. I want to do it right. And I'm willing to put in the time, but I need your help. There's no way to get at this. And I don't think the pitch went very well, to be honest. I walked out of there and I just kept bugging her. But it started, tentatively, she let me in to a little story. And that turned into an investigative story. And then there was a long series of investigative stories over many, many years that ultimately got me into rooms with these 12 extraordinary women called the Phoenix 11. There's 11 or 12 women who had come together, all victims, all have imagery online, and I got to know them, and it changed me. After doing this for a great amount of time, we finally got to the point, and it really did take this long, and it's one of the extraordinary things about this series, is it took that long to get to the point where we could do this, a 6-part series, sitting down with microphones, traveling across North America, and getting the leading voices on this issue. And if not for Leanna McDonald, none of us from this team are here tonight, and none of these episodes exist, and this honor does not exist. So I want to give credit where credit is mostly due, and introduce you to a Canadian jewel. We are all deeply in her debt. Please welcome Leanna McDonald.
Okay, so I'm going to be a bit emotional and then I'm going to get mad. And I want you to hear this. I thank the Hillman Foundation for this. The most remarkable people in this room tonight, to Rob, to Susanna, to Brute, to the whole team of exceptional journalists. I live in a real dark space. I have been doing this for 27 years. And I've never seen it worse than it is today. So the hard part for me as a truth teller and a storyteller is, how do you keep the ears open? How do you engage people in a space that is so awful that they really don't want to know about it? So if you think of the role of investigative journalism, and you think of the value in real, deep truth-telling, it becomes the legacy of the world of history. And so for years, I have been in the front seat of a view I've not want to have had. But I know that that is my job. And so what I can tell you in my work along these years, and I'm going to close with the mad part, but right now you're going to sit in this, is finding Rob Cribb was a really big deal. What he didn't tell you in the first start of how we met was I asked him one really important question when he sat in that boardroom with me. And I asked him, how do I know I can trust you? And I had to open up and I had to tell him and I had to introduce him to survivors who had been so exposed, so destroyed, so not helped, that to be able to, take him into this world and help him understand was a risk, right? Because as we know with all journalism, there's bias, there's perspectives, and there's, most importantly, interpretation. And so with that walk with Rob, it was a really important walk of sort of, how do we do this together? And how do we fight a little bit along the way? And how do we make sure that you've got what you need to do in your own ethical obligation of what you need to do, but how do I make sure that we are also preserving what needs to be preserved and what needs to be told? So this is the dance of being human and working on very, very complex issues and stories. So what I can tell you today, that I work with the most damaged, most destroyed little souls on the planet, and knowing for them, I just met with a group of them as Rob represented the Phoenix 11 in New York City about 2 weeks ago, that there's people like you that are prepared to tell the stories. I can tell you in this new world order that we are living in, the chaos that we are all experiencing, is that there's never more than now that we have needed and require investigative journalism at its best. So I will also give a little shout out to a couple things here going on, and I'll close in 30 seconds because I'm really good at time, is that the ecosystem of how we remain civil is very, very grounded in some core principles. We need the people like you who are motivated from the ground up to be better and to do good and to tell truth. And one of you called out, make sure that the lies are dispelled. Also, we need, foundations. We need people who are going to step up and fund these very, very important journalistic sort of quests. And on top of it, you need the people like my organization that are prepared to open their doors and say, come in, but there's a cost. But we need you, and we know that. So tonight, as Canada wrestles with online harms legislation, you're going to see me a lot. Kids are being destroyed across this great country. I'm sorry. I'm not just making this up. One last thing I will say, going back to the video you saw, my organization issues 20,000 removal notices a day of child sexual abuse images of children. A day. So when we want to talk about tech doing what they can, and then we want to have the privacy zealots step up and say, we're all getting our communication violated, that's a bunch of garbage. What about the privacy rights of the little 5-year-old who's been raped? So I close with a little bit of optimism, is that I feel like we have turned a corner. We are getting our momentum, and the work that you all do every single day across this amazing nation from organizations like ours is not lost. And I hope you all stand, because I would very much like to applaud you all for your incredible work. Thank you.